was hard finding a balance of doing the strength training and running the mileage that I wanted to prepare for my half and full marathon. So it ended up being probably still a little bit more than I wanted to, but I was going to the gym 5 times a week and running. That was when I was like running 4 to 5 times a week as well. So I would do 2 upper body days and then 2 lower body days, really focusing on single leg movements, because running is a single leg sport. If you think about it in theory, you're constantly hitting one foot after the other, after the other. We're not hopping down the course. That would be quite interesting though. But so you have to do a lot of single leg movements. I really focused on that, especially hamstring strength as well. That kept me very injury free with like knee issues and everything like that, really making sure I was.
Hello everyone, this is Sam Breiter and I'm the founder of Run Breiter, a digital running community meant to educate, motivate, and entertain beginner runners and runners who struggle with consistency. See all the mental and physical benefits running provides. I've been coaching runners both in person and digitally for 5 years, but have been running both competitively and casually for 14 years. The Run Breiter podcast gives me the opportunity to bring on guests to share their running journeys and running advice. I assure you, listening to this podcast will make you want to run and follow your journey, as the conversations in this episode will send signals to your mind that even when it's cold, you're sore, tired, or going through something, that a run is still well worth doing. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode in the Run Breiter Podcast. This is episode number 41, and today we have on another super awesome, super special guest. We have on Colt Dayne today. Colt is another one of those runners where I met her via the TikTok community. She was a participant in the most recent Run Creator Network meetup group that we've been hosting, which have been super fun. And so, yeah, I've been diving into her content, super impressed with all your stuff, Colt, but wanted to have you on the show to allow you to talk about your brand, share some value for the beginner and consistent runners that oftentimes listen here. But let me pass it over to you. Would love to get a little bit of an introduction of who you are and maybe what got you into running, as we love to do here.
So as you said, my name's Colt. So I just want to introduce myself. I'm from New Jersey, South Jersey specifically. So I run on the boardwalk a lot. That's where most of my content is just out on the boardwalk, on the beach, having a good time, trying to just promote that running can be a good time, even though some days it is a struggle. I definitely know those days, but I started running this past summer of 2022. I was a college rower for the past 5 years, Division II, nothing crazy, still like worked out 6 days a week, 2 to 3 times a day, lifting, running, rowing.
Wow.
So it was still a full-time schedule for sure, but yeah, so I knew I wanted to continue living a healthy lifestyle post-college, but I wasn't sure how I wanted to do it. I was very torn. I was like, do I want to get into lifting? Do I want to get into yoga, CrossFit? I was being pulled all these different directions. So I kind of just was like, well, we'll start off with running. Like I do it often with rowing. Why don't I just try it out? It's something I'm familiar with. I did always I was never the biggest fan of running. Sorry, I'm mixing up my R words. I was never the biggest fan of running. I actually hated it in high school. I was one of the worst runners on my field hockey team, but then I was one of the better runners on my rowing team. So it was I just was like a average, nothing crazy, but I just did not enjoy it. I think because it was so drilled into us. When I was a field hockey player, so many sprints, so many runs that just would make you like vomit at the end. And that was just something I was not enjoying. My parents were both runners their whole life, so it was very much in the family. They weren't big racers, but they just would always run. They had always run their whole life. So I don't know if I just didn't like it because it was in the family or because I was being pushed so hard, but come college, I started to pick up running during 2020 COVID times, because I couldn't really row. We didn't have any sports at the time, obviously. So kind of started to pick it up there. I did dabble in it a little bit because I didn't want to lift or couldn't really go to a gym. And I didn't own an erg by any means, which is like the indoor rowing machine. So I just kind of resorted to running to keep my training up for college. And then that was when, come 2 years later, I was graduating, wanting to find my new outlet. And I signed up for a half marathon. That was actually the day after our biggest race. Our biggest race is like Dad Vales in Philadelphia. And I decided that I wanted something to kind of immediately push me into running. So I did about 2 long runs before then. Did not do consistent training, but I kind of considered my rowing as my training cycle for that first half marathon. I think I did an 8 mile and a 10 mile run. And the 10 mile, I broke it up into like 2 5 mile runs because that was all I really had time for with all like my other practices. And I used the taper actually from my rowing to coincide with the taper of my running. Just because I was tapering anyway for this big race. So tapered for the run as well. And I did my first half marathon. It was a rock and roll half marathon in Atlantic City, which is in southern New Jersey. It was a lot of fun. Different experience for sure. I had never been in a big race like that. I had never run even, I think I did maybe 1 5K, 2 5Ks for fun, like a turkey trot or somewhere. But I had never been in such like an organized big race like that. So it's definitely cool to see all the people together, motivating each other. Like it was different for sure. But I did like it. I enjoyed it. I was very proud of I guess the time that I was able to do. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I could continue to do this. Like but then I ended up, I'm trying to think, that was the middle of May or the end of May. And then my team made it to NCAAs. So we competed 2 weeks later there. Once I stopped rowing in June, I completely stopped all activity for 2 months, about maybe like a month, 2 months. I ended up traveling for a month in Europe. And I went on like 2 runs, maybe 3 runs in every country. I would go on 1 run just to say I ran in all the different countries, just to be like, oh, I did go on a run here. I got back, decided to turn into lifting. So I was lifting 5 to 6 days a week. And then I decided I really did not enjoy the gym much. I didn't like the atmosphere as much as I liked running. And I liked that I could just get up and go and put on a pair of sneakers. I didn't have to pay a gym membership, even though I still go to the gym because I still am strength training and everything while running. But it's not as much of like only going to the gym. So then in August, I decided to sign up for another half marathon and a full marathon. So that was when I actually trained for my half, which was in October of 2022. That was the Atlantic City half, another local race. But it was pretty big. Like Atlantic City Marathon is pretty popular around here, so definitely brought in a crowd. And it was the first race that I had done where it was also marathoners competing. It wasn't just the half marathoners. And I was like, oh my goodness, can you imagine going another 13.1 miles at this point? Oh my gosh. But I saw all the people still running straight. And so I was turning around for my last mile and I felt so bad. And then I was like, oh my goodness, that's going to be me in 6 weeks. I think it was like 6 or 8 weeks from then. I still had until my marathon. And I did that in December. That was in Hawaii. It was the Honolulu Marathon. I decided to kind of go big for my first marathon.
Awesome. Wow.
Yeah. That was crazy. That was something out of I don't even know. It was amazing though. The start line, there was like fireworks. The start time was 5 a.m. So everyone was awake by like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. The streets were just packed of people walking from the hotels down to the start line, and it was pitch black out. It just was like crazy to see the running community just take over the streets of Hawaii. And I think that really kind of solidified my love for running and just the community that it can create. It was definitely a struggle for my first one, going from training in 30-degree temperatures to competing in 80-degree temperatures from New Jersey to Hawaii. Not my smartest move. We'll work on that throughout the next years to come, but it was definitely very fun and a bucket list item for sure, that I feel like people aren't like, oh, I would need to run the Honolulu Marathon, but it's always like a bucket list item for people. So checked it off as the first one. So long, but that's basically my history of how I got into rowing. Right now, I've just kind of been keeping the miles in, strength training a lot to keep myself strong, kind of get my speed going these past few months.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the full 360 background on what got Colt into running. I love this story because I think you're the first person I've had on this podcast who was into rowing and competed in rowing at the competitive level, to be Division two athlete. That's really cool, and has now gotten to running. But what's interesting is I actually, since I moved to New York City, I've been noticing a lot of people who I've been meeting competitively in college were into rowing and are now running. I don't know if I just came from a neighborhood where rowing wasn't really a thing, but like I didn't even realize people competed in it until like a couple years ago. And now I'm starting
Very
to
niche community.
yeah, a lot of people from like the Pennsylvania, Jersey area, it seems like that's really mostly where that comes from, right?
Yeah, definitely very big in the Northeast here and then West Coast. Um, so I I'm trying I feel like a lot of rowers get quickly burnt out, but they still want to be active. They still want to do an endurance sport, something that they've done their whole life, or at least in college or something. So
Yeah.
running just seems to be the next best thing for a lot of rowers. Plus, we do it at practice so much that we already know it's in our system somewhere, and maybe we can find more of a joy out of it since we're not doing it for the team, we're doing it for ourselves. So yeah, definitely a lot of rowers that I know are now into half marathon, marathon running. No one that I'm like personally close with, but just a lot of people in the community that I know are now doing that. But yeah, I don't really know. Like I said, it must just be we're burnt out from rowing. I've been rowing since I was 7, and then I stopped when I was 23. I'm now 24. So it was a long time to be doing one sport for sure. And I feel like a lot of rowers end up doing it in high school, all through college. So it just is a lot on the body. We just kind of won out for a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll all kind of turn back to rowing at some point because it is kind of a sport that you can do for a long time.
Mhm.
But yeah, for now, want something different, spice it up a little.
I hear you. I mean, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I never competed in rowing, although I do like using the rowing machine at the gym, once a week or so. I do hop on that. Um, but I think it really comes from the fact that rowers and runners both are doing something that requires a lot of like mental strength. You're doing something for like a long period of time. The like initial results of what you're doing too doesn't give you like a lot of, I guess, fulfillment. Like if you think about it with running, the first step, it's not like a great feeling. With rowing, the first row, it's not a great feeling. If you're playing like basketball, you shoot the ball in the hoop, it goes in, like that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Baseball, someone throws the ball, you hit the ball, like that feels good. But it's one of those things where it's like it takes some time to ultimately get that result. But when you finish that race, whether that's with rowing or with running, I think like that's really where that great feeling comes with. And it takes time to get there. And it takes a lot of practice and just repetitive movements towards getting that improvement. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, they're very similar in that aspect. Like you're taking stroke after stroke after stroke, or you're taking step after step after step. It's the same movement, same pattern every time. Nothing really changes. Of course, there's little form things that you can change in both sports, but it's always the same thing over and over again. So it can kind of get draining in that aspect, but at the same time, it's something that helps you get tougher because it's nothing new per se every time you go out and do it. Like it could be a different play in baseball, or like just new things are constantly happening in other sports, but with this it's very similar in that aspect.
Mhm.
um yeah, they're definitely very mentally hard sports to do. For right now, I still consider rowing a little bit mentally taxing. I don't know if it's just because I did it longer. Who knows?
You've been doing
Marathon.
it for what, 15, 16 years? That's a lot.
Yeah. So that was it really pushes you. That's for sure. You do realize though how much your mind can affect your ability and like how you're growing as an athlete and how you're progressing. Um there I just learned so much about myself and how much I can push my body in rowing that is definitely transferring to running. Um, when I think I can't finish that marathon, like when I was on mile 22 and I was like, I'm about to give up. I was like, no, I have pushed myself in rowing so much over the years. Like this is where I have trained for basically all these years. Even though I haven't been a runner that long, I have mentally trained myself to push myself these last 4 miles. So it definitely correlates in how you're able to know how far your body can go. So it is nice that I have that background of being able to know that I can keep pushing forward.
For sure. I'm curious with it though, because with rowing, it seems like the type of sport, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I've never competed in it, where I mean, you're obviously sitting while you're rowing, but you get a great exercise for the upper body, for the back. That movement, obviously, like people specifically do it in the gym to like exercise their back. And I'm sure the shoulders, you're absolutely, crushing them while you're rowing. And so those probably strengthen up nicely. And there is obviously, as we both know, benefits of having a good upper body, and just strength training with running is great too. But you're obviously not on your feet as much when you're competing with rowing as you are with running. Was there any, I mean, I know you said when you were participating in other sports, you would do a bit of running when you were younger, but did you also participate in any sort of endurance-based running movements or leg exercises to see improvement in rowing, or was that not really part of it?
So rowing is actually, which most people are surprised, is almost like it's like 80% legs and 20% upper body.
Really? I'm ignorant. I don't know. Right.
Definitely a lot of upper body, don't get me wrong, but actually all of the strength is coming from our legs because the seat actually moves with you while you're rowing. So you're sitting down on this seat and your feet are tied into this boat. So you're actually sliding up to your feet with your butt, but you're sliding up to your feet and your arms are coming all the way out to put your blade in the water. And then once your blade is in the water, you are pushing your body back with your legs off of the foot stretcher, we call it. So that's what's powering you through the water to bring your oar through and let the boat go the opposite direction. So it's actually almost all legs because the last part of the stroke is you swinging your body back and pulling your arms in, but 80% of it is pushing your legs back to get your body to that position. So it actually is quite a lot of legs. That's why we did a lot of running, a lot of strength training. We did like a ton of squats, deadlifts, RDLs, good mornings, like always trying to keep our hamstrings really, really strong because um, of bringing ourselves back up to where our feet are. Like you're not pulling your legs. I don't. It's very hard to explain, but you're
Mhm.
not pulling your body up to the start. You're almost letting the boat glide you up to the start, but you have to be able to control your legs because you can't rush up to the slide because you have 8 other people that are doing it with you. So it actually becomes very much a leg sport, whether you're pushing or you're going back. So it actually, yeah, it's very not very little upper body, but it is smaller on the upper body portion of working your body than the lower body. But I'm trying to think what else we did specific. A lot of cycling to keep our legs strong. Um oh gosh, I feel like I've been like out of school for like 10
No
years. It
worries.
hasn't
We're
even been
not,
a
we're
year.
not grading you on memorization of all the
No,
exercise.
but we did a ton of erging, which on the erg you move, as you know, like on the machine at the gym, you're constantly doing that. So we did a ton of sprints, just like running. Like our speed days, sprint days, our tempo days, which is like our race pace days. We had a bunch of long rows or long and low rows, which would be considered like our easy pace of running. So it's very similar in the training, actually. Keeping your legs strong for both sports very much. That's why it kind of is similar again for rowers going to running because you have so much leg strength that correlates so much to running that you already have that power in your legs from driving your stroke so many times in the boat.
Super interesting. I mean, that's why I love doing this podcast, because it's like I would have been walking around the streets acting like I knew that rowing was an upper body exercise when no, 80% is your
Mm.
legs.
Yeah,
And I think that's really cool to know. And thank you for sharing that because I was ignorant on that because I've never competed. But I mean, it shows that you were obviously using your legs. It allowed so much. And like a lot of people I've spoken to who have gone from like a sport to running, I've spoken to a lot of soccer players, football players. As both you and I know, rowing, it's not as popular of a sport. So I don't hear those stories as much, but I'm starting to hear them more. And so I think it makes so much sense why you've seen the level of success that you've had with being able to run a half marathon and a marathon in such a short amount of time after not even like competing in competitive running. Like you didn't even do like, did you do track or anything like that in high school or anything like that or
in middle school,
middle
but
school?
that was about it.
But yeah, I mean, you never actually like ran races, and then what in less than 2 years you were able to compete in two halves and a full marathon.
Yeah, that was just last year. So I graduated in May and was had done those two halves and a full by December.
Wow, I
Yeah.
mean that's crazy. So walk me through like for you. I mean, obviously you already had this solid base of endurance, of leg strength, upper body strength. What was that process of getting into running like? What allowed you to really make sure that you were jumping into it with good knowledge and that you were going to be someone who can get out there and not hurt yourself and not overtrain? Because that's I think there's a lot of people out there who go from being a competitive athlete to then finishing school and not really knowing what's next for them and like trying to find that next purpose. And I think running is something that can be so great for that, which you obviously have found, which I'm so happy about. But my fear for a lot of these people is that if they go in with no education and they don't do it the right way, well, maybe they'll get hurt, maybe they'll overtrain, and then they'll have a bad experience from running and then not want to continue to do it. But obviously for you, you've done it in a smart way. And so I'd love to hear from you, like some advice for someone who might just be finishing off their college career in a certain sport and want to jump into running. What's some good first steps that someone should take to make sure that they're doing it the right way to begin with?
So, okay.
Wow. Nobody.
So, yeah, good question. Um, so as you said, I did have a pretty good base, but I did take off about 6 weeks or so after everything, just kind of I needed to recuperate, take some time for myself. So it
Right.
was like I was getting back into it. Um, after those like 6 weeks, come August. Yeah, that was around the time that I started training again.
Mhm.
Um, it was tough. It was it was tough. I struggled. I remember I recorded myself on one of the first runs. That's kind of how I got into TikTok. It was one of the first runs, and it was just me suffering on a 3 mile run. And I was like, wow, I used to be able to run 3 miles like it was nothing, but now I got to really take my time and ease myself back into this. So I did take it really slow. I actually did a ton of research online about it. I just would read articles about half marathon training, long distance runners, just kind of gathering everything I could. And as well as I had a pretty good knowledge base just from going to school. Actually, my undergrad was in health science, and then my master's was in athletic training. So, athletic training is like injury prevention, recovery, emergency care for athletes. So, I did know a lot of things just from school, and I kind of factor that into my own training as well as just other deeper dive research. Because as you said, I wasn't really a runner. I ran, but I wasn't a runner. Um, so I started off just kind of running 2 to 3 times a week. I was running about like 2 to 4 miles each of those times, nothing crazy long. I was trying to stay as easy as I could. I still didn't really know what easy pace meant. I know that we talk about that a lot in running. What is your easy pace or stuff like that? I didn't truly know what that was still. I was probably more so running my race pace at that time. But since I wasn't running 6 to 7 days a week, it wasn't overload on my body. but I wasn't seeing any progress either because I was only doing that all the time. But I eventually found a training plan that I was going to work off of. And it was like basically a beginner to moderate training plan. And then I kind of edited myself as well. I put in my own things. So I started off for the first 3 weeks or so, only like sticking to running 2 to 3 times a week. Then I progressed to 3 to 4 times a week. Once I was getting closer to my half marathon, I was running about 5 times a week. And then after October, I was running 5 to 6 days a week. So I did like a slow progression of 2 times a week to 6 times a week. Again, I kind of had the base already, so it did really help me. But while I was doing this, I started to incorporate strength training, which kept me injury free, because I feel like a lot of people lack in the strength training part. They'll just go say, I'm going to go get into running, start running every day, all the time, as far as they can, as hard as they can. And that's just not the case for how it goes. You kind of have to progress slowly with your easy runs and also building in strength training. It was hard finding a balance of doing the strength training and running the mileage that I wanted to prepare for my half and full marathon. So it ended up being probably still a little bit more than I wanted to, but I was going to the gym 5 times a week, 5 times a week, and running. That was when I was like running 4 to 5 times a week as well. So I would do 2 upper body days and then 2 lower body days, really focusing on single leg movements, because running is a single leg sport. If you think about it in theory, you're constantly hitting one foot after the other, after the other. We're not hopping down the course. That would be quite interesting though. But so you have to do a lot of single leg movements. I really focused on that, especially hamstring strength as well. That kept me very injury free with like knee issues and everything like that. Really making sure I was keeping the equivalency of quad strength to hamstring strength. We often are like so quad dominant, especially with running. Obviously, we work our hamstrings in running too, but your quads kind of overtake, and so that causes like a lot of issues in the in like the back area of your body. I'm trying to not use like any big words, like where your glutes are and your hamstrings and your calves and everything.
Mhm.
So really focused on keeping my hamstrings strong because a lot of people do lack in that. I'm trying to think. And then I added in a plyometrics day, which is like a bunch of almost jumping exercises because you're constantly pushing off your feet after every step that you take. So plyometric exercises like box jumps, skiers. I don't know. I had a whole bunch that I was doing. I would do that for about 30 minutes, nothing crazy long. That was once a week. And then I did a mobility day as well, where I know a lot of people like to do mobility to start their strength training. Like they'll do like 5 or 10 minutes of mobility, but I actually made it a whole separate day. It was I'm trying to think, sorry. It was on my off day. I made my off day a mobility day, which was for me, it was every Monday was my off day because I would do my long run Sunday, off on Monday. And that was basically just a bunch of movements to get the body limber in a way, if you want to say. Just making sure that I was stretching all my muscles, that I was able to fluidly move my body. A lot of people like to do yoga instead of like mobility work, but I specifically did about 30 minutes of mobility, nothing too long where I would get annoyed with how long it would take. But yeah, so those were all the things that I kind of factored into my training to keep me injury free. Knock on wood, but I have not run into an injury yet. I am still lifting 4 days a week and I'm running 6, but I have down weeks as well. That's something that I also incorporated to my training about every 4 to 6 weeks, depending on what I'm training for. Right now it's every 6 weeks, but I had it as every 4 weeks where I cut back my mileage a lot, decreased my weight that I was pushing at the gym. Just basically going in there doing like 3 exercises in the gym, and then I would do like 3 miles easy during the week, like 3 times a week. So I would only run maybe 3 days that week. So that was something that really helped my body just recover, because I didn't want to completely take off that week, but I still wanted my body to um, rest and have time off my feet as much, not running 28 to 40 miles a week like it was. So that was a lot of the things that I incorporated just from knowledge and other things. And then actually the last 6 weeks, last six, oh gosh, 6 to 8 weeks, as I was coming into my marathon, I actually started with a coach. His name is Sammy Blackman. So he is from Texas. He actually just moved now. He's in Austin. So, but still in Texas. So I did also work with him, and I was very hesitant because my knowledge of going to school and all the things that I did learn, I've heard a lot of horror stories with people like um, finding a coach online and working with them and then getting injured right before the race. And so I was very much like, I'm implementing certain things. I will not do certain things that you say if I don't like it. I was very, very harsh with him, but he was very nice with me. And he was like, no, I promise, like, I don't want you hurt either. Like, I want you to be successful in that way. So we really worked together and bounced ideas off of each other those last 8 weeks coming into my marathon. And I really learned a lot from him because he had competed in quite a few marathons. So I actually learned a lot with the fueling process of a marathon. Um, but that was a whole other aspect. But yeah, so that really actually did help me the last 8 weeks to connect with him and just like bounce a lot off of him and ideas and everything. So he had a pretty good background history of strength training and really had similar ideas of what was going to keep me strong and keep me injury free. So I did like working with him, and then I decided to, it was just like a short stint where like we were going to try it out, and then I actually am still continuing with him. So for now we're still working together, probably for this, at least this whole year, and then we'll see how everything goes. But yeah, that's kind of again a long-winded version of how I stayed as strong and injury free as possible and kind of progressed into running, especially after taking those like 6 to 8 weeks off. So
Yeah.
again, still at a pretty good base, which helped me a lot. But yeah.
That was terrific. I mean, thank you for sharing all that. I mean, if I was the listener right now and I wanted to take away like an action item, I would take like the the last couple minutes in which you were just speaking and like write down everything that Colt just said regarding what her strength training routine has looked like and do the things that you're able to and you're comfortable with. I think even if you're doing half those things, you're doing more than a lot of people are. I think what you're doing, Colt, is incredible and is clearly a testament to why you were able to go from a sport like rowing, which, as we discussed, has a lot of the similar mental and physical needs as someone who sees success with something like running would have, but it's a different sport. But you really went all out, it sounds like, as far as doing the research, doing the work, being smart with your training, and also getting help where you needed through a coach and everything like that. So thank you for sharing all that. Like I learned a couple things, and I talk about strength training a lot, but I think some of the stuff you talked about really brought that to a different light. So I really appreciate that. I'm curious from your end though, with strength training, because I kind of go back and forth with myself on this. And, I think strength training, if you want to prevent injuries, lifting heavier in weight and running easy together can definitely give you like some great running benefits while also keeping you healthy. But if you want to talk about pure ability with running, like for me, if I'm like training for like a specific personal record, I'll definitely continue to strength train, but I'll try to keep my weight on the lower side. And I know that's controversial. I'm curious on your opinions. Do you find that when you're strength training more heavy in weight, it can sometimes negatively affect your performance?
Right now in my training cycle that I'm kind of doing right now, every 6 weeks, I have a week where I am testing my PRs in the gym and for running. So I've been kind of focusing on my 5K recently to get my 5K faster to kind of correlate to my half and full in the fall.
Cool.
So I actually have like a PR week and I'll like test my 5K and then I'll do 2 easy runs, which are only like 3 miles, and then I will be testing like my squat, my deadlift, my chest press. Like I'll still do my lifting days, but I'll only do one exercise or two exercises. I'll do like a warm up and then I'll do core and then I leave. So, and then and then I do a deload week after that. And then I start to build back up again. But I never push myself on those 4 other weeks like I do on that one week. So I'm still like lifting heavy, but I'm not ever pushing my body so much where I am so sore for my running. That's not like my goal, I guess, in a way. My goal is to have a very, very slow progression with my strength training. So that way I never feel that my running is being affected by it. Because sometimes I feel like people go too hard all the time in the gym and like really heavy, and then they're like, well, now I'm sore, I'm hurting on my runs, like this isn't fun.
Yeah.
And so my goal is to get strong and to keep myself strong, but it's not to push myself so far in where it's affecting my running. So I really try to find the happy medium in that aspect for like those 4 weeks, and then I really push myself on that one week, and then I take my deload week, and then I kind of restart the cycle and try to slowly incrementally push my weights, maybe like 5 or 10 more pounds, nothing crazy in that next cycle. But I also have no issue with like body weight exercises. It's still strength training, even if you're not putting any weight behind it. As long as you're doing the movements and you're doing high reps, you're still getting good volume. So I have no issues with that at all. I think it can be very beneficial, especially with a runner. Like we're don't have any other equipment that we're carrying around besides for maybe like some fuel or like maybe a running vest for your water.
Yeah.
Um, if you did like to run with those for your marathons or half marathons, but I per se like we're just used to only running with our body weight, so it's not bad to do a whole bunch of body weight exercises, or even just picking up 5 or 10 pound dumbbells and doing like a whole workout with those for 20-30 minutes is going to still have an effect and going to help you, even just like 2 to 3 times a week. That's all you really need for it to be beneficial. So I have nothing wrong with not going to the gym. Like you don't need to be going to the gym to get your strength training in. It's just something that I do personally, but I hope that kind of answers the question
Yeah. Really, really helpful. No,
a little
thank you.
bit.
That's a good one.
Oh,
That's definitely, I think added some really good context to that for people because I think it's like some people are like, well, I want to go to the gym. What am I supposed to do? You answer that with the first part. Then it's like, well, how much should I be lifting? How do I make sure I'm not overtraining in that area or undertraining? And I really appreciate the different takes that you had on that regarding the best way to do it. And I think the balancing effect, from what I've heard, that and that's what I do too. That's really where I think people find the most benefit, both from a performance standpoint as well as I think also like it's a good way to just enjoy, like kind of get the best of both worlds with running and lifting. Would you say so?
yeah, you don't want to overwhelm yourself with trying to get in that strength training that it's like taking away from what you enjoy with the running. Obviously, you want to incorporate it, but you don't want it to be conflicting with each other. You're supposed to be out there enjoying what you're doing. So if it's something that going to the gym is like, oh, it's like a big mental barrier, just something you don't want to do, something you don't want to pay for, like go to Five Below or something and get 5 pound weights, 10 pound weights, and it'll do just the same. It'll still keep you strong. It's something that I definitely recommend for anyone, is just doing it 30 minutes after like a shorter run or something. Because you're going to be, let's say, I don't know, you're used to running for an hour. You have some days where you run for 30 minutes, do 30 minutes of weight after, and it'll still be effective and definitely help you on your running journey. So I definitely agree with that.
That's great. That's great. Now I want to pivot a little bit and talk about because I know at the beginning you were talking about some of the race experiences that you did, and that's one of my favorite topics to talk about because I love racing. I think that everyone who wants a lifelong like a lifestyle, really big picture of running should be trying to sign up for a race, whether they do that just for fun or for the experience, that bucket list, all the different big reasons why we love it, right? And I know you mentioned you did two races in Jersey, two halves, right? There was like they were both in Atlantic City and one was rock and roll
Yeah,
and one was a different one, right?
yeah,
How are those
yeah.
experiences? Because I I've heard about some of the races in Atlantic City. I'm doing the Jersey City half next week, so it'll be my first Jersey race. But Atlantic City, I haven't been to yet as far as a race goes, and I've thought about it. What was your opinion on that experience?
Um, so it was just nice for me because I kind of knew the course already. I was very, very familiar with the almost all of it. So the rock and roll half marathon actually was a little bit different because we ran on like part of, we call it like the expressway, which is like our main highway. So it was kind of, we ran on part of that, which was kind of cool
Mhm.
for the rock and roll. And then the AC half was mainly on the boardwalk because the other one just like ended on the boardwalk, but the other one was like the AC half was like mainly on the boardwalk. So it was kind of fun for me because it was kind of just straight no thinking for a lot of it.
Like
There
I'm
was
not
a
lost.
Yeah, there was like a little ramp that we had to go up and around, but it really wasn't bad at all. And so for me, it was a good place to kind of, my training doesn't have a lot of hills in it, so it was a good kind of transition into a race. But there was pretty good energy with both of them. I'm trying to think which one I liked more. I don't know. I think they both had like a different feel for me because rock and roll was my first one. I was just kind of out there trying to survive. Um, but it was fun with the rock and roll how they had a bunch of, it was actually the first rock and roll in Atlantic City. They had never done it before. So it was like the inaugural race. Um, a lot of music set up, so that was really fun. A bunch of different stations. Once you headed back up onto the boardwalks, you went on the street all the way down, and then you came up and ran home on the boardwalk to the finish line. So that was kind of cool just because like I ran by my own house and my family was able to be right there I feel like it was more of a personal connection with both of these runs. But I mean, I always recommend it to anyone. There's also the April Fool's Day race in Atlantic City, which actually well just happened. So that one I really think is cool as well because it's very straight. There is no ramp, no nothing. So you just actually run all the way down three cities to like the point, which is like a bunch of rocks and like the beach and stuff. And then you turn around, run back on the street, hop on the boardwalk, and then you take the boardwalk all the way back down to the finish line. So I think that one's pretty cool too, just because you get to see the entire island. But I definitely recommend it if you're thinking about it. You can
Yeah,
always come say hi. I'll sign up if you if you sign up, I'll sign up too.
I'll keep you posted for sure. I mean, it's definitely, like I said, it's one I've thought about for a little bit. So I'll definitely keep it in mind, and I appreciate you sharing that. And I gotta also ask about Honolulu. I'd be a fool to not. First of all,
Um,
what were you thinking signing up for that? I mean, like
I
that's
don't know.
awesome. I want to do that one because I do have a goal of running a marathon in all 50 states, but it's like first of all, you picked to run the longest distance that you could, and then you picked the state that was the furthest away from you. So, what made you want to? I know it's like you mentioned it's on everyone's bucket list, but why was that the first marathon that you chose to do?
I don't know. So I guess it kind of started off with, well, one, I've always wanted to go to Hawaii. Like, it's just something I've always wanted to do. And I was done school and I finally had like time to train for something like this. And I don't know. My mom had actually always wanted to go to Hawaii.
I got
And so
that.
that kind of triggered me into looking into, is there a way that I can get my whole family to Hawaii
All right.
with having a reason to go there? Um, so I looked up marathons in Hawaii and it ended up being in December. I forget what month I specifically signed up for it. I think September I might have signed up for it. Like officially. And actually my parents did not end up going. Just I mean, the expense was pretty outrageous for just going to run a marathon, but um that's okay. It was very cool and I could say I did it. My boyfriend actually ended up going with me and my sister. So I still had people that went with me and they were crazy enough to take off a week from work and come with me.
And
Um, I
they probably had a
just
great time.
Oh yeah, they're like not free vacation, but they're like vacation. Okay, we'll go to Hawaii. My sister is a big traveling type of person, just like me. Like we both love to travel. We go all over the place together. That's who I traveled with in June too. We went to Europe and did like a bunch of stuff. We just love it. We will spend our last penny on traveling. Um, not good, but I guess good in a way. So they actually ran the 1 mile race the day before with me. And I have to say, that 1 mile race was the best energy I have ever seen at a race. It was, everybody was just happy to be there. Bunch of kids, bunch of adults, just everyone was doing it. And then they had a category that was the elites, and there was an elite 1 miler. So that was immediately following once everyone finished the 1 mile. So that was very cool. Just that my sister and boyfriend could run that with me, and that we ran that together in Hawaii. And then just seeing those like elite runners too run the insane times. Like I forget what I don't remember, but it was just like insane times. Um, so the energy I almost wanted to say was higher in the 1 mile than the marathon, but the marathon was very cool as well. Started off with like fireworks and just music pumping. Like it was pitch black out because the start time was so early in the morning. And there was no like there's usually like corrals and stuff. It was just mass mayhem. You just kind of got into position, and wherever you could start, you would start. So we had walkers at the front, people who were really fast at the back at the start line. So it was a lot of chaos that I didn't foresee in my first marathon, but it was incredible. And getting to watch like the sunrise over the beach as you're running, you're just like dying, but you're seeing this beautiful sunrise, so you're like, it's okay, everything's gonna be fine. um they were actually a cupless marathon, so that was different too. They had some kind of like bystanders that would give you cups. They just had long faucets throughout it, so that was a different experience as well. That you could just kind of stick your head under and get what you could get, keep running. Because I didn't run with like any vest or anything. I didn't want the extra weight. I was like, it's already so hot out there. I don't think I can handle like another 5-10 pounds on me. So I just ran with the belt, but it was really cool to see. I forget. I think there was like, oof, 15,000 people that ran it this year. Normally there's a lot more, but it was very cool just to see like so many people, and you were never alone. Like sometimes I feel like with races you can kind of get spaced out. I just never felt alone. I always felt like I had a group and we were on our way and we were together. And the whole city really came out and like showed up for it. So it was awesome. I highly recommend it for anyone that it's on their bucket list and they are on the offense about it to do it.
I love this. And I love like overall just like your general enthusiasm for running. And like I can tell whether it's the training process, the strength training. I know you talked about like fueling up and working with a coach, the racing, all that. Like you have clearly found that love and desire to continue running and just, do it for multiple reasons, of course. But you just, what you feel with it is what I'm trying to like encourage people to feel from it. And I'm hoping that anyone who's listening, it's like this opens up your eyes to realize that in a short period, like you can feel this way too. It's not going to feel that, this way the first time you run. You were talking about like when you're first getting after it, like this 3 mile runs, like it was a little hard, but you do the right things and this is all like possible. And I'm sure from here, like you just have so much more planned. I could tell and feel that based on your general enthusiasm. So I'm curious, like what's next for you? Like, do you have any big goals? And if you don't, it's okay. I mean, I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I just need to know if there is, because I'm excited for, what's next for you.
Um, 5K, that's kind of my first feat. Is I have like a local 5K that I'm just going to sign up for because I've been training all my 5Ks every like 6 weeks right now. So they've been like alone, or maybe like my sister will come and bike with me and try to push me on the bike, but it's not the same. She's like, you have wheels, stop trying to push me. So I signed up for 5K. It's at the end of May, I believe. Oh gosh, I don't even know the date. But it's getting there. So that's my first feat. And then I don't have anything for the summer, but I'll be starting to train this summer. I actually haven't posted anywhere what I'm doing. I just said like I signed up for my second marathon, but here's me saying what I did. So I signed up for the Philly Marathon. That is going to be, still close to home, but I wanted my whole family to be there this time since in Hawaii, um, it was just my sister and boyfriend. I want my parents to be able to go and everything like that. So, and just people that like friends and family, still very close to home, went to school in Philly. So I know the area again pretty well. And I just wanted it to kind of be my second marathon. And then I might do another half before that. I might actually do the AC half again, just because it's a fun race and I really enjoyed it my last year. So that is in October. So I might do that one too. But for now, the definite races are the marathon in November and then my 5K in May. But yeah, that's what I have right now. I don't have anything really any further than that, but for
Okay,
this year.
got a lot coming up. I mean, that's it's good that you have stuff that you're signed up for that will continue, to keep you driven towards running and keep you consistent. Because for me, I've found like if I'm not signed up for something, like I might still run, but it's not the same. It doesn't hit you don't have that same practice and self-discipline with it. And so yeah, that's great. And I mean, what I will say is I did do Philly, the marathon. That was my first one back in 2021, and that was
How
an
was it?
it was great. I mean, for like first marathon, I was like absolutely blown away. I mean, it's a little hillier than some of your Atlantic City races, but it's not
Yeah.
it's not too challenging compared to some other marathons I've done, and the crowd is really great. And I mean, I hadn't been to Philly probably for like close to 10 years. So for me, it was really cool, like seeing all of the spots, and you're not running in the same area at all. Like it takes you really through the entire city. So I really enjoyed the course. But I think you'll really like it because especially it's, you know, you'll have your family there, the area, and in the marathon of it, it's completely like a different feel. That's kind of how I felt like when I live in New York City, and when I did the New York City Marathon, like I ran through that entire course several times in different pieces. But when you run that race, it's like you feel like you've been to this place, but it's fully new and built up to the best possible way it can. And that's through the running the marathon. So that'll be great. And if you need any advice on, Philly, let me know, but I'm sure you'll probably have some good resources being from that area.
Yeah, yeah, but I'll let you know because you run it and I have not. So I might be asking for some tips, that's for sure.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Colt, I know we gotta hop off here in a minute here, but I'd love to give you the opportunity to let people know where to find you via social media because I truly am super inspired myself from your story. And I know that there's people who are listening who are going to want to be a fan of yours, hear about how your 5K goes in May, hear about Philly and everything in between. So feel free to shout yourself out and anything else you want to bring up too before we hop off, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Well, I guess I'll just start off with one thing that I did want to say. It's just I learned as much as I love racing, I love getting to the race. I have learned so much in the training for that. Um, like the journey really is the most important part to getting to that race. I had so much fun and like I incorporated my family on so much of my training. My dad would bike with me on all my long runs, or like sometimes my boyfriend would step in, come bike with me as well. Like just try to pull people in to your madness, because it really does create just such like a good energy, and it just makes you want to keep pushing further. And when I was looking back on it, I was like, I know race day was really special and like it was really cool that I finished my first marathon, but that journey and that like 16 weeks that I spent training really was the most important part of it. So just don't go through the motions when you're training for your race that you're setting up your goal for, because when you look back, those will be like some of the most important days and like the funnest days that you've had. Even if you're doing it alone, like I still just had a great time with myself too, and just learned so much about myself throughout it. So don't forget that. And then for my socials, I am Colt which is Dayne on basically everything. TikTok is kind of my main platform. I just started posting on Instagram, kind of doing 30 days of tips from a first time marathoner, just kind of what I learned throughout my training cycle, and maybe what you want to implement into yours. And then I am actually just most recently on Lemon 8.
Great. Well, thank you, Colt, again. Like I said, everyone, check her out. She's great. This was so much fun having you on today. I learned things myself, and it was really just great getting to know you and letting you talk about what you're working on. And I'm super excited for what's to come with you. And if there is anything in the future you need any help with, just let me know. I view this as a favor, you coming on the show. So it means so much to me that you were willing to spend some time here tonight.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I really do appreciate it. I had fun.
Awesome.